Get the recording started. Great. All right. So, hey, everyone. I'm Alex Chan. Welcome to our last webinar for this year. We've been doing a monthly CTA webinar every month, and appreciate everyone that has joined in, and also the ones that have participated and been panelists on this webinar. It's been very valuable to a lot of our CTAs. I've got a lot of great feedback, even if they're not directly like live on these webinars. They definitely get a lot of value from these, from all the knowledge that's been shared. So thank you all. And anyone that's on here live during this webinar will be put into a $25 Tennis Warehouse raffle, our gift card raffle. So I'll reach out to the winner after this webinar has concluded. I want to thank Rob Gerstman, who's has been I'm very happy for you to come on and share some of your expertise on the topic for this webinar, which is on volunteers. So I want to go ahead and let you have a chance to go ahead and do the brief introduction, and then we can go right into it.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Really pleased to be with you guys and to end your great season of these types of webinars. Once again, my name is Rob Gerstman. I'm program manager for Kings County Tennis League. I'd like to talk a little bit about Kings County Tennis League and start off by reading our mission statement. Kings County Tennis League combines tennis and education to spark the potential of children living in and around Brooklyn public housing. So in essence, we give free programming to all of the students in our community. Traditionally 5 to 15-year-olds, but we're expanding to give academic support as well as continued tennis play to our older high school students as well in preparation for their college experiences, whether or not they play tennis. We're all about preparing our students for what sparks their interest, what sparks their potential. And we believe that tennis and the educational experiences and field trips experiences that we provide will help them along those lines. I want to talk a little bit about our programming. We traditionally have had a summer Saturday program at our 6 NYCHA communities. That's New York City Housing Authority, by the way, for those of you who aren't familiar. And those summer programmings have been an hour and a half of tennis, followed by a half hour of an off-court experience that revolves around a theme and some sort of team building activities that they can do together that might go along with their tennis experience, but might be something separate that they can learn from. From that summer programming, we've grown tremendously. We have spring after school programs and fall after school programs, an upswing program most of the year, pretty much all year round at this point. For our more advanced students, we have an all-girls program called Go Girl Go. And we're just really excited, across the board, how we've grown. And that just speaks to, our on-court programming, that we provide. We have a lot of stakeholders at KCTL, obviously primarily our students, but it's our families, our communities, our volunteers, which we're obviously going to talk about more today, our staff, of course, and our board members, et cetera, et cetera. And it's my job, it's my role, along with our co-program manager, to really help facilitate, bring all of these stakeholders together, make sure everything is set and in place for our staff to run programs successfully, which includes, of course, the training, onboarding, implementation, and enthusiasm of our volunteers.
Excellent. That's a great summary of what you all do. And yeah, we're going to really get into some of the details on your volunteer program. And I also want to put it out there to anyone that's watching that if you have any questions, you can put it either in the chat or in the Q&A section, and we'll try to get to it as soon as we can. But I do have a list of questions that I can get started with, and then we can go from there. So let's start with the different ways that people can volunteer with you all. So I guess what are the different options that they have?
Great. So yeah, when people register as a new volunteer with us, they can choose amongst a variety of on-court options. And I kind of mentioned them before, with respect to, are they interested in our winter programming or summer programming? Do they want to get involved in our after-school program, our buddy program, which I'll talk about a little bit more later? Perhaps they really want to get involved in an all-girls program like Go Girl Go, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the different types of on-court varieties that they have at their disposal. What we also allow for is off-court opportunities, right? Do they want to get involved in helping out with our educational materials and curriculum? Perhaps they're a videographer by profession or just really enjoy it, and they can help produce videos or capture photographs. They might be in the marketing world and can help us figure out how to reach more competent and qualified staff and other volunteers. They might be able to help with fundraising and other types of events and other types of fundraising campaigns. Maybe they have an expertise in donor management or grant writing. We have a website, so people have expertise in graphic design. We also have to make sure that we cover our legal bases where we need to. And, our volunteers, there's lawyers amongst them and, other walks of life. And then lastly, I'd say we always just want to think creatively and outside the box and let our volunteers know that we're ready to empower them. And if they come up with a good idea that we did not think of, then we want to run with it. So for example, we had a volunteer who works for MasterCard, and she spearheaded an opportunity for our Go Girl Go students this summer to have an online via Zoom tech coding class, and that ran for about a month, and it was really successful. So in a nutshell, there's a lot you can do and volunteer for at Kings County Tennis League. And, hopefully that gives the variety for somebody to be excited, to join in with us.
Yeah, I think for a lot of groups that we work with, when you think of volunteers, I think the immediate thought is they're either on-court volunteer, they're helping with the program, but I thought it was very interesting and kind of share all these different off-court opportunities that I think more CTAs could take advantage of, but they for whatever reason they don't delve deep into that area. I guess, do you have any any best practice regards as far as how do you reach out to these people to help out off court? How do you let them know hey, we're a tennis group, and you may not immediately see that there's a connection with how you can help out with us. How do you kind of show that there are actually a lot of opportunities for them?
Yeah, no, of course. What I want to do real quickly here is I'm just going to share my screen. And I'm going to show our new volunteer registration form. And I'm just going to scroll through slowly so you can see a variety of things along the way, like your basic profile information. What would you like to volunteer for? And then to answer your specific question, how do you want to be involved? And some people will check off, I want to teach the kids tennis. and others will check off these other things that I spoke of before. And that just starts to build a database of, if we have something specific we're working on, who can we reach out to who's already expressed that type of interest. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so I can come back. But that's, I'd say, the first basis point. When we have specific projects later on, if we need to reach out to 1 or 2 people, we'll go that route. We also have a volunteer committee, which is essentially, we're inviting all of our volunteers to come join us on a monthly basis. And then there we can also talk about the various things that are on our plate at the moment that they might wish to help out with. Mm-hmm. We'll obviously reach out via email as well to the masses when we have something on our agenda that we would like some assistance with too.
Great. Okay, good. And I'm glad you brought up the volunteer committee piece of your volunteer program. I did see that on your website. I'm just kind of curious if you can share like some of the purpose of those volunteer committees and what value do they bring to the organization?
Yeah, we started the volunteer committee a little bit over a year ago. We really wanted to have a place that was singularly focused on our volunteers for 2 main purposes. One, a platform for them, right? Here's a place that they can go to benefit themselves selfishly, right? We have to always remember there are reasons why people want to join our organization, and we want to make sure that we're always considering those reasons, building upon those reasons, and what better way than to have a space for those volunteers where they can literally do something themselves amongst each other and have a great experience. So to build upon that, we added a KCTL Slack account, right? Here's a place volunteers sign up, and there's different channels. You're part of the winter program, the summer program, or just a general channel program. You want to reach out to each other and you want to get together. You want to hang out. You want to go hit tennis balls. You're trying to find somebody who's a 2-5 just like you and happens to be off in the mornings. And that's what a lot of people are looking for. We get a lot of volunteers who are like, I'm new to the country, or I'm new to Brooklyn. I just moved here after college, and they want a community. So if you can present to them as quickly as possible, here's that community, here's what you want, then that's how you keep people involved. The other reason to have the volunteer committee is, what are the things, right, as staff that we can't get to? We know that every organization that's a nonprofit can't get to everything. So you have volunteers who have abilities and they're creative and they want to give back, not just on court, or maybe they don't have time on court, but they want to do something off court. And so we have a volunteer committee where we can come together and hash out what are our KCTL ideas, what are the things we might want to accomplish but we can't get to, how can you guys assist with that? One basic example would be, we have a campaign, we need to call hundreds of families, and hey, we need some volunteers to just help us call families. Here's the script, right? That's kind of a simple generic scenario. But one thing we're about to venture into is we want to build the Kings County Tennis League team store merchandise. We have so many people who are like, we want to buy the t-shirts you guys, give out to your kids and to the volunteers. We want to buy more hats. We want to buy more of your wristbands, whatever it might be, right? And we're going to empower our creative volunteers. We haven't figured out who they are just yet, but sent out an email today, already got a handful of responses because they're going to help us build that online team store. So yes, we could perhaps raise revenue from it, but more importantly, all of our stakeholders that I just mentioned before, they want KCTL apparel so they can feel like they're more of a part of what we do.
Gotcha. All right. And it's just something that came up. I forgot to ask, but how many, like roughly, how many volunteers does Kings County have?
Yeah, in any given year, I'd say we have between 100 and 150 volunteers. Some are, as we've discussed, primarily on court. Some are doing off court work, and then there's a combination, who do both.
Okay. And I guess percentage of your on-court and off-court volunteer, like roughly, how many do you think you would say?
That's a really good question. I don't know the exact answer to that. I'd say, of the, let's call it 150-ish, I'd say somewhere like 115 to 125 are on court.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. All right. No, that's good. And then I mean, that's
And totally varies throughout the year.
Of course, yeah.
Right, depending on their, ability to join us for certain programming.
Sure. Do you get a sense of like the makeup of your volunteers as far as like are a lot of them like a certain age? Are they certain do you have any type of like general idea of where they mostly come from?
Yeah, it's mostly within that 20 to 40, age bracket. We also have high school students as well. And then we also have, those above 40, but predominantly it's that 20 to 40 age group. Most people coming to us, they're hitting town for the first time, they're coming out of college. Or on the flip side, they've had their family and, they're looking for, something else to do. Now that they have more time on their hands. But for the most part, it's the people who haven't, ventured down the family road yet, and they're young and they have more time on their hands and they have more energy. And, sometimes that's what you need.
Gotcha. All right, cool. And I think I saw a question pop in, but I'm just going to get some clarification on what the question was. So we'll come back to that here from Louise. But no, that's good. And I want to kind of go into like, okay, let's say I was a volunteer, or I would be volunteer. I want to volunteer for Kings County Tennis League. And this could be helpful for other organizations as far as them playing out the onboarding process.
Yeah.
Like, as a volunteer, like someone wants to volunteer, what are the steps that they have to take in order to like volunteer officially with you all?
Yeah, of course. Let me go back to sharing my screen.
Go for it.
All right, so I'm just gonna quickly go back to, the new volunteer registration. This is the first primary step, is someone is filling out this form. So my strong recommendation is collect as much information as you can right off the bat. Even if you don't think you need it yet, it's just really good to anything you can think of. We have things in here like what's your USTA rating in case we want to put together a social, and we can start to figure out how to match people up accordingly. We ask about their current job, and yeah, that can change over time, but it's important to know what's their career field in case we're interested in doing a field trip and we know somebody works at a certain place or in a certain industry, then we can reach out to them and see if they can help us put something together. And then of course, where you work might have a donation matching program. So if somebody's able to volunteer their time or donate certain monies along the way, then we know that their organization is able to assist with that too. We do collect other demographic type information. Where do they live? Why is that important? We have different sites. So when I'm trying to ascertain where I might want to put people into summer programming. While we do let people choose, if I want to try to move people around where I might need more help, I can start to look and say, oh, I see so-and-so lives here. I can reach out to them and say, hey, can you move to this site instead? Because you're, closer. So really just capture as much information right off the bat with that new volunteer registration form. Once somebody registers, I get an indication right from there about, their, that they've registered as a volunteer, and I will send them a welcome letter. I will personalize that letter, and I'll let them know that I'm available to talk by phone as well, should they have any further questions. In that letter, there's a KCTL background check link. It's a very quick, simple background check, and they can take care of that immediately. Once they do that, we're going to say, okay, well, you're interested in our winter program. So here is the link to create your KCTL account in our data platform and to go ahead and register for the winter program accordingly. We use a data platform called League Apps. For you out there who are nonprofit organizations, I recommend reaching out to them. We're able to use their platform for free. So, that's something, that you should check out. It's called League Apps. And all of these things, just in general, if you wanted to see more, if you want to learn more about League Apps or something else, you can feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be glad to assist you further. Of course, within our onboarding process and training process, we have USTA Safe Play training that we make sure everybody's aware of. And we do now a virtual training where we go through a lot of the information and materials beyond the actual court activities and the tennis itself. We do that virtually. And I'm going to bring this up in a moment. We follow that up with an on-court training that includes your net generation type activities. And within our training, we go through our volunteer handbook, and we share this handbook, of course, with our volunteers so they can use it, as a resource going forward. I'd like to bring up our virtual training, which coincidentally happens to be this evening, so you can kind of get a better feel for what this looks like. So on slide 2, you'll see our mission statement. We want people to understand right off the bat what it is that our purpose is, what it is that our desire is for our children. We're sparking their potential. Once you can gather that and really understand that it's not about making the best tennis player, but it's about helping them figure out what it is they're super interested in, then you get a better feel for what it is we're trying to accomplish. We go through our volunteer handbook. I'm going to click on these links in a little bit just to kind of give you a little bit more perspective. But we introduce the manual, talk about social norms, formatting of our class, what active participation means, what positive youth development and social emotional learning is. And then we go through some drills and games. We watch some videos. I'm sure you're all familiar with Leah Friedman. This lobster trap rally is a Leah Friedman special. And we, get them understanding how to create safe spaces, what it all looks like. And then, of course, we get into, in our on-court training, we'll go over this in person so they get a more hands-on feel for all of it. So I'd like to kind of open up our volunteer handbook. And obviously, I'm not going to go through all 27 pages here, but I want you guys to just get a feel for what this looks like and the types of things you might want to include in a handbook to assist your volunteers accordingly. So a table of contents, of course. From there, our mission statement, and then we talk about our pathway, right? I mentioned our summer core programming. Most kids start with us through that program, but they can start with us in other ways. And then this diagram explains how they can venture off into different aspects of KCTL as they grow and mature. Our general expectations, our policies, the background check, USTA safe play, and how to go about providing us with their safe play approval. You know, how to handle conflicts, KCTL social norms. What are the types of norms you have on a court, holding your racket, picking up balls, but really at the end of the day, using every opportunity as a moment to build relationships. And I'll talk about that a little bit more so you guys can understand what PYD, positive youth development, is. But dealing with injuries, interacting safely with children, importing phone numbers, you know, general class structure, all of our programs are different. We do assessments through an organization called Hello Insight. We do surveys through them. We're a YouthInc member. So, you know, we're part of that YouthInc training. Teaching volunteers about active participation. And then here, positive youth development. So I just want to touch upon this briefly to really emphasize what we do and what we feel any youth organization should do, at least to some degree. We want to engage our kids authentically. We want to meet them where they're at, their lived experiences, their culture, their passions, their interests. We're trying to find all of that out within the spirit of our community tennis programming. So we're teaching positive youth development to our staff. We're teaching it to our volunteers, both virtually and on court and on an ongoing basis, so that volunteers really understand that it's about building relationships with the students. And then we promote peer bonds. So it's really about kids building relationships with each other and doing things together so that there's an emphasis, you know, on more modern community style tennis in terms of peer-to-peer activities, small group activities, rather than, you know, old school traditional stand in a line, wait to hit a couple of balls, get to the back of the line, right? So circuit training and different things of that nature. So kids are constantly engaged and working with each other so that they learn accordingly. And then just the last thing I'd say about that is, you know, we emphasize rallying from a net generation perspective, which is different than, you know, everybody can't rally at the same level. So we're starting kids at a basic level. Perhaps they're learning how to walk the dog, rolling the ball on the ground with their racket through cones, then eventually peer-to-peer, passing that ball back and forth to their partner. Maybe they're doing it in fours in a square, and you pass it from one person to the next. And as you pass it, they tell each other, you know, their names, something about them. So you're building that unique experience where everyone feels engaged, everyone feels like they're heard, everyone's being included. Really important. And our volunteers are super important in all of this because it's our volunteers who work directly with the students. The staff are creating and facilitating all of this, but the volunteers are taking the direction and working directly with the students in the smaller groups, in the spaces to make this all happen the way it should be.
I was gonna say so this is a very robust like a handbook. I guess if
Yeah,
someone wanted to take a look more in detail, I think it's available on your website. Is that right?
it is absolutely available on our website. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I'm gonna come back to here and I'm gonna stop sharing and come back to you, Alex, and everybody.
Great. Yeah. I did just see a question coming from I think from Ronnie, who's one of the lead for one of our bigger CTAs in the area. It's related to what you just said. He was talking. It's not really a volunteer question specifically, but they want to do something similar where let's see, they want to have summer camps for kids living in affordable housing in DC. Want to have kids come to our site at a local university, which is metro accessible, but they're having trouble with who they should try to talk to garner interest.
Yeah.
Local leaders, council members, and or housing development managers. So
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, it is an ongoing process, but you want to find out who's the resident president, of that community housing. You want to find out from the management office when they have their resident meetings and show up to a meeting. You want to create a flyer and ask management to distribute it, the resident presidents to distribute it. Maybe they'll give you access to information to be able to email it or mail it out. But at the very least, if you can ask them to email it on your behalf, I would say that's the best way to start the engagement. Even if you're going to do the program somewhere else, which is not ideal, but hopefully it is close enough, you want to ask if you can do something first and at least once, if not a couple of times at their location. So perhaps, even if they just have a blacktop space, which is what we use predominantly, you set up the pop-up nets, you send over, a staff, a volunteer, and, they bring kids over, they bring families over, and you show them what it's all about. Maybe you can send them a video too of what it's all about just to start to spark their interest. I'd say those are the main ways, you want to create interest, and everything's about relationships. To get back to volunteers, it's all about relationships. And if you can figure out what drives them, what motivates them, make sure they know that you want to be a part of the community, not just pull people into your program for numbers, then it really goes a long way. So it's a challenge, but if you're up for it and you have the resources, then go for it. It's worthwhile.
Right. So hopefully Ryan, that helped answer your question. It sounds like you did. Okay. So okay, good. So good. Yeah. I guess if you need to talk more, we can discuss that more. Let's see. I guess I can go to the other question that Louis just popped in here. Do you have a paid staff position to manage your volunteer program? Which is, that's a good question. It's like when you're talking about you have like over 100 volunteers, like that's a lot of people to manage potentially. So
Yeah.
yeah. How do you all handle it?
So I'll say a couple of things. One is, I'm one of the paid staff members. I'm a part-time program manager. The other program managers part-time as well. We do also have other administrative staff who are awesome and supportive in what we do. So we have paid staff to manage our volunteers in terms of recruiting, training, all of those aspects. It's never enough because you want to train more and offer more. And, we have our staff who are constantly training on the go as well. So we do our virtual training, we do our on-court training, and then you hit the ground running, and our staff are supportive along the way, constantly giving advice and feedback. Each week we're sending out the plan, to our volunteers so they know what's coming up before the actual practice occurs, going over the plan again, letting volunteers know what they're going to be doing, but everyone's ready to be flexible because things evolve throughout community tennis programming. So you have to be, ready to adjust. So yes, we have paid staff, and little plug, KCTL is hiring a director of programming. So please spread that word, because, we're looking for somebody above, program management to really help, drive us going forward.
Very good. Excellent. So I just want to let people know, I think we have about, let's say, 9 minutes or so of this webinar. So if anyone has any additional questions, keep on sharing that. And then we'll get to more of the attendees' questions soon. I just want to get through a few more questions on our end, and then we'll jump right back to those attendees' questions. There've been a lot of great questions so far, so that's good. I wanted to ask, I know this is something that pops up a lot, about essentially finding volunteers, like even finding paid coaches right now can be tough. Like find volunteers.
Yeah.
How do you, what have you found has been a great way to for you to find volunteers or get them to come through to hear about your organizations?
Yeah. So our marketing, staff person does a great job through social media, and uses that to find as many volunteers as we can, and targets the usual Instagram and everything else you can think of. Word of mouth is huge. So many of our volunteers come from other volunteers, right? It could be someone who's still engaged in the program and loves it, and other individuals want to be with them, love what they're hearing about KCTL, and we make it a fit. So word of mouth is key. So reminding volunteers that we're looking for others, spread the word. They know their channels. Partner organizations, USTA, league apps I mentioned before, finding other tennis organizations, and literally walking around our properties, in terms of our NYCHA communities, our other tennis communities in the area, and just handing out flyers, telling them what we do. Hopefully we have programming going on in the moment, and we can just point to it and people observe and they go, that's great. Otherwise, we're describing it. I'm telling them, get back to me, or if someone else is handing out the flyer, contact, Rob immediately. So those are the main avenues.
Right. So it also sounds like it's a constant thing. Basically, it's like ongoing thing. Whenever you get a chance, kind of put it out there. And actually, I saw the question that was just put in the chat. It's actually related to this conversation. It's I know you mentioned that most of your volunteers seem to be around the 20 to 40-year-old range, which I think in my experience, I've seen mostly a lot of organizations they work is really with either like high schoolers or maybe retired folks. So I guess what are your ways of connecting with that group, the 20 to 40-year-old age group?
Yeah, so it is through social media and through our channels of word of mouth and who knows who. I wouldn't say, our marketing guru is constantly trying to figure out with a lot of things, not just for volunteers, but where are the best places to find whether it's volunteers or staff for certain things, and it's a constant ongoing challenge. So I wouldn't say we found that ideal 20 to 40 spot, but between Instagram, Facebook, and everything else, you're getting various hits, and being on site and walking around is where you see people playing tennis, you get a good feel for their personalities and whether or not they'll be a good volunteer. And they walk off the court and you're handing them a flyer, and it just kind of starts from there. I was at one of our communities, saw a guy hitting against the wall, definitely looked like a beginner tennis player, and he is, and he's going to start volunteering with us this winter. And I can already tell he's going to be a great volunteer, even though he's a beginner player, which I think kind of leads into our next question of, what creates a good volunteer.
All right, go ahead and share. Yeah, what makes a great volunteer for you?
Yeah. So people who care about our students and our mission, right? They want to build relationships with our students. Um, they're patient, they understand what a growth mindset is. They want kids to be able to come in and understand mistakes are okay. So we foster that positive youth development environment where kids feel like they're a part of something. They're going to get better. They're going to learn from each other. They're going to feel empowered. And volunteers who understand all of this really help in what we're trying to accomplish as a community tennis organization. For some of our higher level tennis programming, like our upswing program, then you need volunteers who have a higher tennis level ability. Um, of course, most of our volunteers have played tennis before. And even if they don't have the highest ability, the background that they have is helpful to what they're going to teach our kids, plus what we're showing them along the way, how to teach kids, breaking down the basics really goes a long way in helping them understand our mission. So it's really the relationship building and the understanding of our mission. And those who understand that want to educate kids, they're our best volunteers.
Absolutely. Okay. And I said, like, the different volunteers, they volunteer for, they have their own reasons volunteers to volunteer for programs and for anything really. What are some of the like benefits or selling points that you give out to potential volunteers or and so forth as far as working with you all?
Yeah. And first off, we're selling amazing kids, amazing community. Join it. We have so many volunteers who say it's the best part of their week, right? With everything going on, especially, they have so many challenges in their own lives to look forward to that day of the week where they volunteer, they get to put a smile on a kid's face or just experience the smile on a kid's face. They love that. Volunteers are looking for new hitting partners, as I talked about before. They want to develop relationships with other volunteers, as I talked about, and they want to create their own network. Maybe they're looking for another job and they meet someone through Kings County Tennis League who's going to help steer them in another career path. We have awesome apparel that we're going to have soon, hopefully, on our KCTL team store, and volunteers are going to get, all of that swag. And like I said, someone's new to the area, they're searching for community, they're searching for something to be a part of. And, this is a great place for them to be, especially when they have a tennis type of educational background as well. The last thing I do want to mention is, we have something that we added during COVID called the buddy program. And what we sell to some people, especially those who can't be on court and they're still not back in the city, in New York City for whatever reason, so they're not local. We have a buddy program. And this has been an amazing program where we've paired up volunteers and students with each other to meet via Zoom and just talk about what the student wants to talk about, or play a game online together. Or a great example of a volunteer and a student who they got the same ingredients and they cooked the same meal together and they ate together. So, via Zoom, right? But the point is being creative, offering different experiences for volunteers. Now, hundreds of our kids are not involved in this. It's only been 20 something kids involved, but there's been real, meaningful, deep, impactful relationships that have been built this way, which is ultimately our desire in Kings County Tennis League to really build student volunteer relationships.
Gotcha. Excellent. And I said I want to be mindful of time. I guess I want to ask one last question, and if anyone in the attendance would like to ask any final question, feel free to share. Let me ask, I guess, working volunteers, I'm sure that, there's a lot of upsides to it, but I'm sure there's also a lot of challenges with it. If you had to name, like, just name one challenge that you have working with volunteers, and maybe the way that you kind of overcome that challenge, I'm sure that'll be helpful for the group.
Yeah, I'd say inherent time conflicts. We've had traditionally Saturday morning programming and during the summer, and volunteers can go away a lot. So how do we compensate for that? We get as many volunteers as we possibly can, knowing that we're not going to have every volunteer on every day, and we're able to maintain our ratios accordingly. We also, as we've discussed, we offer varieties of programming so that those volunteers who can't be with us on a Saturday can be with us, hopefully, after school programming during the week, and vice versa.
Excellent. All right, great. So I think that was very very impactful. I think webinar we just had, like, we gave a lot of great information, value to the people in attendance, and hopefully people that are watching this later on. Any final words you want to share? Any final word of advice, for example? Anything you want to share before we?
Yeah, I'd like to just share a few points, like in anything you do, and as you start thinking about adding your volunteers and growing that base, always remember like what your foundation is as an organization, and make sure your volunteers are adding value to that, right? You want to always kind of grow, but remain who you are and do it wisely along the way so you don't outgrow yourself. Remember that perfection's the enemy of good. You're going to try new things. Some things are going to work really well. Some are going to fail. You're going to adjust along the way, but that's good. Failure is good. You're going to learn from that. Listen to your volunteers, be creative, and empower them. Empower your volunteers to help your organization. Empower your volunteers to, build relationships with your students. And that's it. Everything's going to work out from there.
Great, excellent. And last thing, if anyone wants to just learn more or reach out to you, is it okay they reach out to you?
Absolutely.
Is the email the best option, or?
Email is the best option.
Okay, great. And I'll just I'm going to go ahead and paste that into the chat here so people can have a chance to copy that. But yeah, Rob, again, very much appreciate you sharing a ton of value in what you all do. And it sounds like you do a lot of great things and you make a big impact to the community. So thank you for everything that you all are doing. And I much appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. Thank you for inviting me. And I hope everyone got a lot out of this. And once again, reach out if you have any questions.
Great, excellent. And that said, that wraps up our last webinar of the year. And I forgot to actually mention one last thing at the beginning. Was another reason why I want to talk about volunteer is because within our section, I'm going to be leading a volunteer program that's kind of led from the section level. So we're going to be offering some opportunities for people to put in their volunteer needs in the sections program. So I'll be sharing that information out to CTAs in like first quarter of this coming year. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, thanks again, Rob. And I hope everyone have a great holiday season, and get some good rest as we prepare for the new year. All right. Stay safe, everyone. Bye, everyone. Bye, Rob.